Finally, Barry Burke closed in on Corey Lewandowski for what was the worst public half hour of Corey Lewandowski's life.
Why did you lie on national television, sir, about the president giving you a message to the Attorney General about the special counsel's investigation?
I don't recall that particular day and my mindset at the time, so I couldn't answer that.
Today, the House Judiciary Committee held its first big impeachment, non-impeachment hearing. And two things happened. One is that a fairly ludicrous and deeply untrustworthy figure, former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski, appeared to perform a kind of MAGA karaoke for an audience of one. Lewandowski's testimony today included him insulting people and not answering questions. There were multiple calls to find him in contempt. But also beneath all the performance, Lewandowski essentially confirmed the facts in the Mueller report.
We thought that Mr. Lewandowski would come and tell the truth. He was, in fact, in living color, the story that was told in the Mueller report. The American people haven't read the Mueller report. They got to see a living character who was actively engaged, although he was not an employee of the United States government, he was not an employee of the White House, but he was used by the president to sidestep the laws of the land. And that, I believe, throughout the entire day was very clear.
What this is all about is the president directing Lewandowski, who was not a government employee, to go to Sessions and tell Sessions essentially to end the Mueller investigation into Trump, to limit it only to future investigations.
I have stated, to the best of my knowledge, most of the information in the Mueller report is accurate.
Oh, the Mueller report is accurate, says the president's campaign manager, who admits to playing a role in attempted obstruction of justice, also implicating White House Deputy Chief of Staff in that attempted obstruction of justice. That Deputy White House Chief of Staff is now defying a subpoena and refusing to testify. And so that is what happened in the House Judiciary Committee, with the help of some new rules allowing its lawyers to do the questioning. All future hearings under this impeachment inquiry will be conducted under those same rules. I think we can expect that the relevant committees here, the Judiciary Committee and the House in particular, will probably get that maybe they should put their staff questioning on blast.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.
Future and whether he can remain as prime minister and continue serving as the longest prime minister in Israel's history. They are also very much about his personal future. He has 2 weeks now until a preliminary hearing in 3 ongoing corruption cases where the Attorney General has said he intends to indict him on charges of bribery and breach of trust, pending that preliminary hearing that's now 2 weeks away. If Netanyahu got the right-wing religious government he was hoping to have at the end of the night, he may have been able to legislate immunity from prosecution for himself. It appears the path of that government is very, very far away at this point. Where does this go from here? Well, the results will be finalized on Friday and only on Friday, and then all of the political parties begin meeting with Israel's president. He will see who they recommend. He will then appoint somebody to try to be the next prime minister and put together a government, and then we're into coalition negotiations, which is where this all fell apart over summer, leading Israel back to elections. Oren Lieberman, CNN, Tel Aviv.
And joining me now from Jerusalem, Yohanna Plesser, president of the Israel Democracy Institute, also a former member of the Knesset, a member of the Kadima Party. So, Yohanna, thanks for being with us. This now all seems to come down to Avigdor Lieberman, the former defense minister.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. So we're looking at Avigdor Lieberman. He controls about 9 seats, maybe, in the Knesset, and everyone's looking at him, much to be the kingmaker. He sort of sparked this election back in April by refusing to join a coalition government. At the time, and he has repeated this again, he does not want to be part of a coalition which relies on the support of the religious parties for its survival. Let's just assume Lieberman gets his way and that there is this unity government with or without Netanyahu, but it is not dependent upon the religious parties. That in fact, they may not be part of the coalition at all. How much of a watershed moment would that be, not just for Israeli politics, but for the entire country?
Well, The president's first campaign manager is on Capitol Hill, preening for an audience of one. Corey Lewandowski in front of the House Judiciary Committee as part of its investigation into whether the president should be impeached. Lewandowski may as well have been cutting ads for what's largely believed to be an imminent run for Senate. And the president liked what he saw from Lewandowski, live tweeting his former aide's appearance. Lewandowski is a witness, though, to some of the most flagrant acts of obstruction of justice detailed in the Mueller report, including Trump's effort to enlist then Attorney General Sessions in corrupting the investigation into Russian interference. Mueller writes this in his report, quote, Trump dictated a message for Lewandowski to deliver to Sessions. The message said that Sessions should publicly announce that the investigation was, quote, very unfair to the president, that the president had done nothing wrong. And Sessions planned to meet with the special counsel and let him move forward with investigating election meddling for future elections. Lewandowski said he understood what the president wanted Sessions to do. That was all according to Lewandowski's testimony to Robert Mueller. But Lewandowski wouldn't answer questions about that or much of anything else that mattered in his testimony today. Instead, for much of the last 3 hours, he's been repeating this refrain.
Mr. Congressman, I'm trying to adhere to the White House's request. I answer questions that are provided in the Mueller report only, so I'm trying to reference that report directly about your question, Congressman. The White House is directed not to disclose the substance of any discussions with the president.
Did he ever discuss with you any concerns that he may have committed a criminal offense?
The White House is directed not to disclose the substance of any discussions with the president or his advisors to protect executive branch confidentiality. I recognize this is not my privilege. Again, Congresswoman, I recognize that the privilege is not mine, but I've been asked by the White House to... Congressman, I'd be happy to answer your question, or you can just have a conversation by yourself. But if you'd like to ask me a question, I'll be happy to answer it.
I'm going to continue. The reason is
well, then don't ask me a question if you don't want to hear my answer.
I'm reclaiming my time. This is a House Judiciary, not a House party.
But Lewandowski's wasn't the only circus in town. Another one of the president's men was also on stage, albeit a very different one. The man who once stood at the press secretary's podium to speak on behalf of the United States of America, and the White House made his debut on Dancing with the Stars. Because of course he did. This was Sean Spicer's turn on the reality dance contest last night. So there you have it. Two loyal aides, two very public faces of the Trump White House.
On the type of government he wants to see. He did say he's talked to the right-wing parties, but instead of talking about a right-wing government, he said he wants to see a national unity government.
Israel needs a strong and stable and Zionist government. A government that is committed to Israel as a national state for the Jewish people. There won't be, and there can't be, a government that is being supported by anti-Zionist Arabic parties that doesn't believe in Israel as a Jewish and democratic state.
Netanyahu's Likud campaign throughout had anti-Arab rhetoric, saying the Arabs are trying to steal the election and accusing them of election fraud. He continued that, saying the Arabs can't be part of a Zionist government in Israel because they are anti-Zionist. Meanwhile, Benny Gantz spoke a short time before Netanyahu, and he said, although the votes still have to be counted and they're waiting on final results, it appears they have accomplished their mission. They see it now as their job to unify the government. They're also calling for a national unity government to bring the main parties together and lead this country on what they see as a unifying path to bring all of the sectors into one.
I hope to create a wide unity government, a government that is willing to return to Israel its special values. We're one people, one society. The polarization is behind us, and the work of unity and reconciliation is ahead of us.
For Netanyahu, these elections aren't just about his political...
Beto O'Rourke is all fired up against the come and take it crowd. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says Miami only has a few years left, and the New York Times is under fire again for another offensive tweet. All that and more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
God bless the United States of America.
All right, friends, welcome to the show. I hope you had a great weekend. We've got a lot to cover, and it continues from last week. Beto seems to be, Robert Francis O'Rourke is milking his left-wing policies for all he can get. If you recall, in the presidential debate Thursday night, O'Rourke just went off on the Second Amendment and law-abiding gun-carrying citizens. And now it's a full-blown campaign to take away that right, to take away our Second Amendment rights. And if you recall, on Thursday at that debate, Beto was asked, basically, are you planning to take firearms from law-abiding citizens? And here's what he said.
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We're not going to allow it to be used against our fellow Americans anymore.
So following that statement, if you recall, I said, good luck with that, right? Well, others were even more fired up, more direct. State Representative Briscoe Cain here in Texas tweeted out this. He said, my AR is ready for you, Robert Francis. So what did Beto do? He cried like a baby and put out this tweet. Check this out. This is a death threat, Representative. Clearly you shouldn't own an AR, and neither should anyone else. All right, so first of all, give me a break here, all right? If someone says, if you come onto my property and try to take my property, there's going to be problems, that's a threat? I mean, I don't even get it. And yet, guess what? That's what Twitter thought, because they said that they deleted his tweet, Briscoe Cain's tweet, and said it was a violation of their policies. It's just absolutely outrageous. So that was round one. But I guess he thought there was some steam in this and some energy in this. So he's continued on with this assault against the Second Amendment. He went on MSNBC and things just got bizarre. First of all, as he told the host, Joy Reid, he contacted the FBI about Briscoe Cain's tweet. He actually contacted the FBI. Here's what he said.
If we're ever threatened by anyone,
For a decade, Benjamin Netanyahu has been the ultimate political survivor. But now, for the second time this year, he's been rebuked by voters, denying him an outright victory and leaving him few options to build a working coalition. Israel's longest-serving prime minister might end up being replaced by a political newcomer. Benny Gantz, leader of the centrist Blue and White Party, which according to exit polls has a slight lead in the number of Knesset seats. If that lead holds, he could be invited by the president to try and form a coalition. Gantz is calling for a national unity government. But the man whose supporters call King Bibi says he will work towards building a Zionist government without influence of Arab parties. To CNN's Oren Lieberman now, who's been covering the election as well as Netanyahu's campaign.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took the stage here behind me at about 3:30 in the morning with exit polls showing an incredibly tight race between Netanyahu and his rival, former IDF Chief of Staff Benny Gantz. Crucially, he said they still need to wait for all the votes to be counted, even as the exit polls began slipping away from Netanyahu and toward Gantz. So in his speech here, he started by thanking his supporters, thanking the volunteers, and thanking all those he voted Likud. It certainly wasn't a victory speech, but it also wasn't a concession speech. And suddenly he changed his language.